Good evening. I'm so glad you could join us to celebrate the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. I'm your host, Dave Price, and it's once again an honor to be part of this important event. You know, our great country is filled with beautiful museums, buildings that are works of art in and of themselves, or architectural wonders that attract the eyes and imagination from afar. We're blessed with museums across all 50 states that are caretakers of our history. But this place, the historic buildings of the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, don't look like any other museum. These buildings, including Hangar 79, which is behind me, all 86,000 square feet of it, don't exist to house just history. The entire museum is actually part of history, battle-tested and war-torn. It survives today to share its stories, to celebrate Pearl Harbor, and to educate the next generation about what took place here at Pearl Harbor and over the waters of the Pacific. Here, the walls do talk, and so do the floors and windows and every beam and cinder block, even the roof. The planes are history lessons. The exhibits are tangible connections between today and yesterday. The video kiosks bring the battles and the struggles of the war to life. Interviews, transcripts, and audio put visitors back in these buildings on that day of infamy and poignantly help hundreds of thousands of people understand why we give thanks so often to the greatest generation. In many ways, December 7th, 1941 seems forever ago, far removed from the world we live in today. But the great astronomer Carl Sagan once noted that you have to know the past to understand the present. It's our job to ensure that the stories of the men and women of Pearl Harbor and the Pacific Theater live on. That what happened here in these hangars, on this island, and in Pearl Harbor is never forgotten. And that lessons about patriotism and valor are shared, motivating new generations of Americans to follow in the footsteps of greatness to serve their country in some capacity. So during this program, come with me, step into these buildings, step back in time, and step forward with us and help ensure that this special place continues to serve as a bridge from the past to the future for generations to come.
Aloha, I'm Chuck Cotton and this is my wife Sherry. We have the pleasure of being this year's For Love of Country co-chairpersons.
Though we hope to be together in person, it is our pleasure to be with you in spirit for what we know will be an unforgettable virtual affair.
As you enjoy tonight's special program honoring the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, please know that we thank you for all of your support. It is with your help and support that we proudly celebrate our 15th anniversary.
Thank you for joining us and for supporting our very important work.
Tonight, we enjoy the music of the Royal Hawaiian Band. From its royal beginnings in 1836, the Royal Hawaiian Band has entertained audiences in Hawaii and around the world for 180 years. Once known as the King's Band, it was created by King Kamehameha III and became a staple of daily life by performing for state occasions, military ceremonies, and marching in parades. Today, the band is led by bandmaster Clark Bright, who himself brings history to life. Clark was a member of the 11th Army National Guard Band that performed at the Waikiki Shell on September 1st, 1995, in remembrance of the 50th anniversary of World War II. The theme was Hawaii Remembers. Clark's father, legendary theater director Ronald Bright, had the honor of being the MC at this special concert. Bob Hope joined the stage when the band played Thanks for the Memories, and in his humble and powerful fashion, entertained the crowd. This memory lives strongly within the hearts of the Bright Ohana and is a true sentiment of just how special Bob Hope was to our service community.
My
Linking our past with our future, we welcome the young men and women of the Kamehameha Concert Glee Club performing Hawaii Pono'i.
Tonight, we're coming to you from America's World War II aviation battlefield, inside hangars that withstood the attack on Pearl Harbor. The response of our veterans, our greatest generation to that attack, forged the American can-do spirit. Stronger Together had its origins in the 1940s. Unlike past years, there aren't thousands of people behind me in this hangar, but I am not alone in tribute. I invite each of you to remember your personal connection to World War II and the conflicts that followed. Grandparents, parents, spouses, children, relatives, your friends, someone in your circle has or is serving this country. Think of them tonight, lest we forget. These are very powerful words. My story is probably like yours. 8 years ago, as I prepared to move to Hawaii to join this museum, I found my father's discharge papers. A Marine, I knew very little about his World War II Pacific Theater service, not only because he never shared, and most World War II veterans did not share, but also because I didn't know enough to ask. It reminds me of the middle school student visiting our museum with his family, who when asked if he knew about Pearl Harbor responded, "No, who is she?" This place matters. Look around me. We are inside a World War II aircraft maintenance and assembly hangar that protected hundreds of service members on that date which will live in infamy. The damage left by the bullets fired on that day can still be seen, but it is not the damage of war that threatens this historic facility, this historic hangar. It is the passage of time and the impact of weather that forces its closure to the public. We need your help. We need your help to raise this roof, lest we forget.
It's time for the first of our two salutes to heroes of Pearl Harbor, men whose courage under fire on that day of infamy was extraordinary. Here are their stories, which will make you proud to be an American. Second Lieutenant Harry Brown was one of the first Americans to shoot down a Japanese aircraft during the attack on Pearl Harbor. After rushing to the airfield following an all-night party, he took off in an Army Air Force's Curtiss P-36 Hawk fighter, dressed in pajama tops, tuxedo trousers, house shoes, a flight helmet, and goggles. He shot down 2 Japanese aircraft during the attack and was awarded a Silver Star for his actions. Later in the war, he became an ace by downing 3 Zeros in New Guinea in a single day in 1943. These were the first of 551 enemy aircraft shot down in the Pacific by the legendary 475th Fighter Group. Lieutenant Commander Samuel Fuqua had a front row seat to the devastation at Pearl Harbor from aboard the USS Arizona. He was having breakfast when the ship's air raid sirens first sounded at 7:55 a.m. He immediately rushed to the quarterdeck, where he was strafed by enemy fire and then knocked out cold when a bomb landed near him. Moments later, he became the Arizona's senior surviving officer after another bomb detonated the ship's ammunition magazine, killing nearly 1,200 men. As injured sailors poured onto the deck, Fuqua ignored strafing from enemy aircraft and calmly led efforts to evacuate his sinking ship. Fuqua was among the last men to abandon that ship, and he then commandeered a boat and braved heavy fire while picking up survivors. He was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions that day and was promoted to Rear Admiral upon his retirement from the Navy in 1953. The training and target ship USS Utah was badly damaged by 2 torpedoes from Japanese aircraft, listing to one side as water rushed into its hull. As the Utah began to capsize, Chief Water Tender Peter Tomich stayed below inside the ship's boiler room, even though he was aware that the ship was sinking. He remained at his post in the boiler room until he saw that all boilers were secured and all fire room personnel had left their stations, saving their lives. In saving his shipmates, he lost his own life. For his distinguished conduct and extraordinary courage, he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Chief Petty Officer John Finn was still lying in bed when Japanese fighter planes began attacking the Kaneohe Bay Air Station on Oahu the morning of December 7th. He immediately drove to the base and commandeered a .30 caliber machine gun and set it up in an open area. For most of the next 2.5 hours, Finn kept firing his machine gun against the strafing Zeros. He may have been responsible for destroying at least 1 plane. He suffered more than 20 wounds from bullets and shrapnel during that battle. One shot left him with a broken foot, while another completely incapacitated his left arm. But he refused to leave the field until the attacks ended. He then received medical aid and returned to duty that same day to assist in arming American planes. For his courage under fire, Finn was awarded the Medal of Honor. He survived the war and lived to the age of 100. Second Lieutenant Phil Rasmussen was still sleeping when his post at Wheeler Field was bombed. But he rushed outside and found an undamaged P-36 Hawk fighter sitting on the runway. Still wearing a pair of purple pajamas, Rasmussen took off and joined 3 other pilots in a dogfight against 11 Japanese aircraft. His plane was slower and less maneuverable than the enemy Zeros, but he quickly shot down one of them. He then badly damaged another plane before Japanese pilots blasted his Hawk with machine gun and cannon fire, leaving behind some 500 bullet holes. Rasmussen's canopy was blown off, and he briefly lost control of his badly damaged aircraft that suddenly had inoperable brakes, rudders, and a tail wheel. Yet he managed to land his P-36 safely and was awarded the Silver Star for his bravery. He served in the Air Force for another 24 years before retiring with the rank of colonel.
Though we cannot be here together to experience the inspiration that fills your spirit when you stand on the hallowed grounds of Pearl Harbor, the images you see on your screen hopefully remind you of a time when our nation came together to defend the freedom we hold so dear. The buildings, the aircraft, the exhibits, and the vistas from the Ford Island Control Tower speak to us in very personal ways. As you reflect, I hope you share in our belief that this place matters. Nothing is more powerful than seeing the actual wall from the USS Arizona, a portion of the galley destroyed on that fateful day. The wrangled, rusted steel reminds us all of the horrific destruction that in seconds ended the lives of 1,177 servicemen. Hangar 79 still bears the signs of the 1941 attack. Bullet holes in the windows and strafing on the building itself can still be seen. Inside, this hangar supported aircraft maintenance and assembly throughout the war, and today supports not only our historic displays, but also the work of our staff and volunteers who restore the aircraft showcase throughout.
December 7th, 1941. Yes, it's a day remembered by many as one of the greatest tragedies in our nation's history. But more importantly, what's also remembered from that day are the incredible acts of bravery by the men and women of our armed forces who rose up, met the enemy head on, and with great sacrifice, they got the job done. Tonight, as we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, we remember them, we honor them, we thank them. Here at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, you'll find Hangar 79. It sheltered American service members during the attack. I mean, it still has the bullet holes and the scars from that day. But now, its greatest enemy is age, weather. So, proceeds from tonight's gala will help restore, raise the roof of this great relic and piece of our history. I wanted to personally thank you all for your continued support. And thank you to the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum for all the work you do.
Under the direction of Kumu Hula Kaleo Trinidad, the students of Kamehameha School's Hawaiian Ensemble will perform a song that directs our attention to the very seas that surround us. It is a reminder to all of us of what's important, and it speaks to our collective responsibility to care for our land and seas, and it shares the aloha that we have for our island home.
O piha kanaloa, o piha piha ke kaie, o lehia ka hua o mana ke aha, i kapa ia ni kalui, a elo ke hawi aina o ma o piha kanaloa, o piha piha ke kaie.
In addition to the academic and personal development training delivered by museum educators, Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum also provides scholarship support. Fulfilling the vision of our donors, scholarships are awarded each year to help aspiring young achievers reach their full potential. Here are their stories.
I always knew I wanted to be a pilot, and getting involved with the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum was the catalyst to my path to making my dreams come true. By experiencing the museum as a visitor and as a student, my passion for flight grew exponentially. I attended the Flight School for Girls summer camp, which was a key turning point in my life and career, because it was at that camp that my dreams became my goals. It was at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum where I realized that becoming a pilot could be my career, that it was something I could achieve. Without any pilots in my family, first finding my way was challenging. But the Flight School for Girls opened my eyes and introduced me to incredible role models and mentors who convinced me that my dream was possible. And the museum staff members were there to encourage me all along the way. Scholarship support from the museum helped me actually get into an airplane and take flight lessons. The moment the wheels left the ground on the first flight, I knew I would never want to leave the clouds. After I passed my private pilot check ride on my 17th birthday, I had the exciting opportunity to volunteer during the museum's annual flight adventure. Young students learned some of the basics of flight before joining their instructor on the runway to fly the RC airplanes. It was so rewarding to be the one to sign their logbooks verifying that they had completed a takeoff and landing on the historic Ford Island runway. Programs such as these are critical to helping the kids that were like me realize that anything is possible and the sky is not the limit. Thanks to all that the museum has done for me, I am a certified flight instructor with a commercial multi-engine license, helping others achieve their aviation dreams. I'm using the scholarship funds awarded by the museum to finish my bachelor's degree through Liberty University online. Thanks to my pilot certificates transferring as credits towards my bachelor's degree, I only have 2 years left before I graduate. Ultimately, my goals are to become a captain at a major airline, fly C-17 Globemasters in the Hawaii Air National Guard, and continue to volunteer at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum, impacting and inspiring the lives of our youth.
So I can't say enough how much the scholarships made a difference in my training. There was an opportunity for me to become a flight attendant. My sister and I both actually applied together and we both got in, but the only thing I would rather be doing would be moving up into the cockpit because I had the experience as a flight attendant to do cockpit breaks and break with the pilots and see what they do. But I'm flying full time and I couldn't be happier. I mean, I have a long way to go before I get to where I want to be. Throughout my journey, even though I'm halfway through it, I'm beginning to inspire other people that are starting on their journey. And it's just such an incredible feeling that what I'm doing is, also helping other people.
I used to see the F-22s fly over. And I remember thinking like, man, what does that guy have that I don't have? Like, I really want to go and fly. So I ended up going to the open cockpit day that you all have. And there was this woman there that was wearing an Amelia Earhart uniform. She came up to me, she's like, oh, you're interested in aviation. You should come to one of our 99s meetings. So I ended up going to a 99s meeting, which is Women in Aviation over in Hawaii. And I started learning about scholarships and learning how I could actually become a pilot. I ended up applying to a couple of scholarships and was selected and started flying. I was like, man, this flying thing's pretty cool. I should see how far I can take it. And sure enough, I eventually became a CFI. I started making money, flying and doing what I loved, and got into the Air Force. And I've been flying T6s, T-38s, and now I'm flying the F-16.
With the support of many, we will open an exciting new resource this January, the Aviation Learning Center, installed into a World War II linked training facility. The historical impact of this is really pretty exciting. During World War II, thousands of pilots trained in this building, on this very historic site. Going forward, thousands of young people will be introduced to what may become their future. Not only will they be exposed to the math and sciences of flight, their museum experience will also introduce them to the values and character of our greatest generation. Here on Ford Island, these young people will learn to lead with conscience. Island Control Tower stands today as a beacon for peace. It is only from its upper cab, a resource added to this historic structure in 1942, that one can see the entire Pearl Harbor. Over the weeks that followed the attack, the work in the shipyards across the way changed history, salvaging the Pacific Fleet to defend our nation. The defenders and attackers of the December 7, 1941 attack can be seen in Hangar 37. The P-40 Warhawk took to the skies on that Sunday morning to defend against the attacking Japanese Kate torpedo bomber and the infamous Zero. Only here can you view all three together.
Our second group of heroes from the attack are equally distinguished. We hope they too will inspire you to always remember Pearl Harbor. The USS Nevada was the only ship from Pearl Harbor's Battleship Row to make a break for the open ocean during the attack on December 7th. However, it never would have happened had it not been for the heroic efforts of Chief Bosun Edwin Hill. Hill and a small crew braved heavy fire and strafing to go ashore and cut the moorings holding the Nevada to the quay at Ford Island, just a few hundred feet from what is now the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. He then dove into the oil-stained water and swam back to his ship. As Hill directed an ammunition train, Nevada tried to steam out of the harbor while under heavy fire. After taking many hits from Japanese aircraft, the captain decided to beach his vessel to avoid bottling up Pearl Harbor. Chief Hill was on the forecastle working to drop the anchor when a group of Japanese aircraft bombed Nevada's deck, killing him instantly and blowing his body off the ship. Chief Hill was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Army Air Corps pilots George Welch and Kenneth Taylor were still sleeping off a night of partying when they were awakened just before 8 a.m. on December 7th by the sound of exploding bombs and machine gun fire. The second lieutenants threw on their tuxedo pants and rushed to Haleiwa Airfield in Taylor's car while dodging bullets from strafing Japanese planes. Just minutes later, they were among the first American pilots to get airborne in their P-40 Warhawk fighters. Welch and Taylor waged a dogfight against hundreds of enemy planes. They even landed at Wheeler Field and had their ammunition replenished before rejoining the fight. By the time the attack ended, Welch and Taylor had shot down 6 enemy aircraft between them. Both were awarded Distinguished Service Crosses, and Taylor was also given a Purple Heart for a shrapnel wound he received when his P-40 was struck by machine gun fire. Doris Miller was a cook and laundry attendant aboard USS West Virginia when the ship was rocked by multiple bombs and torpedoes during the December 7th attack. He became one of Pearl Harbor's greatest heroes. When the shooting started, Miller rushed to his battle station. Finding it destroyed, he raced to the quarterdeck and helped move the injured out of the line of fire, including the ship's mortally wounded captain. He then helped pass ammunition to the crews of 2 50 caliber machine guns. When those manning the guns fell, and despite having no weapons training, he manned one of the guns himself and began blasting away at the Japanese aircraft. He ignored the danger from the ongoing firefight and continued firing that gun for more than 15 minutes when he was ordered to abandon ship. His actions earned him the Navy Cross, the first ever presented to an African American. He was widely hailed as a war hero and later toured the country promoting war bonds before being assigned to the escort carrier Liscombe Bay. Sadly, Miller was killed when the ship was torpedoed and sunk in 1943. In 2032, the U.S. Navy will commission its newest aircraft carrier, which will proudly be named the USS Doris Miller. Today, we pay tribute to Bob Hope, who single-handedly established the tradition of bringing laughter and a taste of home to the troops on the front lines all around the world, and did so tirelessly for decades. His selflessness inspires performers to this day who continue his tradition of giving back and expanding the umbrella of what service to your country is really all about. Here to share his story in her own words is Bob Hope's daughter, Linda Hope.
Hello, I'm Linda Hope, and I'm here to tell you that in 1944, more than 100,000 American servicemen and women signed a petition asking that my dad, Bob Hope, come and entertain them in the South Pacific. This appeal triggered the formation of the Pineapple Circuit, a USO tour that island hopped the region. For a full week, performances took place at 3 or more military installations each day across the state of Hawaii. It was an incredibly demanding schedule, and the Pearl Harbor performance was by far the most impactful. These shows and others like them took place at military bases in theaters of war in Europe and the South Pacific, often near the front lines of battle. My dad and the entertainers who joined him were determined that our service members would never forget the taste of home and hope they experienced during these powerful performances. As we commemorate the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor that launched our nation into World War II, there is an even deeper significance. As we gather this evening to support the stewardship of this American battlefield, it's exciting to see for the first time the newly installed Bob Hope, an American Treasure exhibit. Opened in May of 2020, in the midst of the escalating COVID pandemic, the exhibit highlights the triumph of spirit and the resilience of our greatest generation. Reading the letters of service members written directly to and answered by my dad brings the fears and the hopes of that era to the forefront once more. The exhibit shares my dad's legacy of joy, hope, and belief in the power of laughter to uplift and heal. His patriotic commitment to our troops was unmatched, and though the travel was often grueling, these shows on the road were amongst his proudest work, entertaining the incredible service members and the everyday Americans who contributed to the war effort. Their patriotism still inspires us today and will inspire Americans forever. We encourage each of you to share with your children compelling stories of service such as those shared in this exhibit, stories that highlight personal determination, the value of hard work, the support of our service members, and our patriotic spirit. These values define Bob Hope's legacy and the greatness of the American spirit.
Tonight's appeal is all about raising the roof, ensuring that Hangar 79 and all the historic structures on this World War II aviation battlefield are preserved and used to pass on the legacy of our greatest generation. The spirit, resilience, and the values that grew out of our national response to the attack on Pearl Harbor serve as the foundation of the American can-do character. It is our honor and our privilege to invite you to join us in this effort. Every dollar raised tonight and over the coming months, up to $1 million, will be matched by a very generous donor who believes as we do. As Ronald Reagan shared, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in their bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. of the B-25 and the Doolittle raid is one of inspiration and grit. With full belief they could not return to their carrier, these brave pilots and crewmen took off on a mission that defeated the odds. Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum B-17 went down on its first mission during the Battle of Rabaul. The crew, convinced they could not make it safely back to join their unit, made an emergency landing. The field they thought would provide them safe haven turned out to be a swamp. Though the crew survived, the B-17 remained in that swamp for decades before it was salvaged and returned to share its story. Hence the swamp ghost.
Now it's my honor to introduce you to two of our most distinguished living World War II heroes, both of whom are good friends of the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. They have inspired generations of Americans and continue to do so today. We welcome Colonel Bud Anderson, a triple ace who shot down more than 16 enemy aircraft in World War II while piloting his famous Old Crow P-51. Bud will be celebrating his 100th birthday on January 13th. We also welcome Brigadier General Charles McGee, a Tuskegee Airman who flew 409 combat missions, more than any other American fighter pilot. General McGee will celebrate his 102nd birthday on December 7th. We hope you will enjoy spending a few moments learning more about these legendary pilots and great Americans.
Let me tell you what it's like to fly something like that after all these years. It's beyond awesome. And let me tell you, a guy, you know, you do a tour in a war, and then somebody creates an image of your airplane in that war. That's pretty special. Do you realize that I've had 4 different airplanes, Old Crows, and there's 2 still up, two of them are still flying. One of them crashed, and one got sold and is being repainted at the moment. But when I was able to fly those things, I don't know. It was a special event. I think you can imagine.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you and share this wonderful occasion. And the importance of it to me is what we as citizens are responsible for. Certainly we enjoy the freedoms and joys of being in these United States. We share this evening thinking of the past and what has taken place, and those made it possible, really possible for us to be here today and share in this evening. I've often felt that the importance of citizenship is something that all should serve at one time, and certainly we give honor to the veterans and those who have served our country, and at the same time pass on that knowledge to the young people who are our country's future.
Good evening. 80 years ago, these very hangars provided shelter to service members called into battle without warning. The hangars, the control tower, the entire ramp were consumed by the devastation of an attack that changed our country and shaped our world. Pearl Harbor has become a symbol of our nation's resilience, our nation's beacon to protect freedom. For our World War II veterans, it was the call to action around which they rallied. Millions of American households had a connection to someone who served. How do we remember, honor, and pass on this legacy? How do we prepare those who will lead our future? Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum shares that history with hundreds of thousands of people each year who visit the museum, and reaches millions more online through other media outlets. This American aviation World War II battlefield stands alone as a tribute to the sacrifice and service of our greatest generation. Only with your help will the buildings that withstood the attack in 1941 on Pearl Harbor live on, honoring our past, inspiring our future. This is a responsibility we all share. Through your support, we have saved the control tower, Hangar 37, and the Link Training Facility. Thank you. But now it's time to save Hangar 79, which sheltered our troops during the attack and has stood as a symbol of American courage for 8 decades, since the day of infamy. We invite you to join us in this heroic effort to raise the roof. This place we call our nation's only aviation battlefield matters. We hope that our program has moved you to join us in whatever way is best for you. We are united to preserve and protect this American World War II battlefield so that the lessons of our past, both trials and triumph, shall shape the future. Thank you for joining us this evening, and we wish you all fair winds and calm seas. Good night.
Our program tonight is a perfect melding of our past, present, and future. A melting pot of culture, service, and community, our history, and our roadmap all in one. A fitting way to celebrate a museum as special as ours. If you haven't already, please go online and make a gift. Help us raise the roof and secure the future for this American World War II battlefield. I remind you, this place matters.